Time for Stream Dreamin'.
Welcome back to Stream Dreamin', everyone. I am glad you're here. Today's video is atypical for me. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm an Airstream fan. I love my Basecamp. I love doing fun mods. I love taking it places. I love spending time in it. I enjoy cleaning it. I love everything about it. But today I'm angry and I'm calling Airstream out for negligence. And that's not clickbait. They missed the mark and the problem is widespread. Worse, they don't seem to have any intention of addressing the issue. Now, fair warning, this video has a lot of information that every Basecamp owner needs. I encourage you not to fast forward. Let me walk you through this step by step. Watch the whole thing. There is not another video out there that compares to this. I think I've watched every video on YouTube on the topic, and based on what I've seen, you'll be glad you watched this video. Even if you don't have corrosion yet, trust me, it's coming for you and it'll sneak up almost overnight. I'll show you how to stave it off and how to mitigate it without undue scarring. Now here's how it happened to me and just how quickly it can happen to you. I washed my Basecamp when I rolled back into town after my last adventure. Everything was great. A week later, I discovered this surprise. Not what I wanted to see, and frankly, it really ticked me off. I called my local Airstream dealer, then sent them a photo. They said there wasn't a fix other than to replace the entire panel for $7,500. That's 1/5 the value of my trailer. No thank you, I'll figure something out. I knew right away that it was a dissimilar metals reaction, and the closer I looked, the madder I got. But let's set that aside for a minute and start at the beginning, because you won't win this battle without knowing a little more than you do. And frankly, there are some really bad videos and even worse advice out there. So here we go. Modern Airstreams use a coated aluminum. It's not bare like it was in the 60s. Today's Airstreams, including Basecamps, are coated with a thin layer of acrylic or urethane that protects the aluminum from oxidation and UV damage. That's why simply spraying the corroded area, even with a great product like Corrosion X or ACF 50, won't work. Neither one of these products can penetrate the factory coating. And if applied over intact clear coat, they can actually soften it or interfere with its adhesion. So what do? Just scraping it with a knife or scissors is not the answer either. So how do we fix this? First, we have to understand how those spiderwebby things come to be. When the clear coat that covers the aluminum is breached around screw holes, trim plates, or heat vents, it opens the door for moisture to sneak in. Once there, it begins to migrate between the coating and the aluminum. Driven by capillary action and the presence of oxygen, it creeps, forming thin thread-like corrosion paths. That's called Filiform corrosion. It's nasty and ugly. It lifts the clear coat from the aluminum as it spreads, creating those spiderwebby things, those little bubbles. And it gets worse. It gets turbocharged by a dissimilar metals reaction. You see, aluminum doesn't play well with chrome or stainless steel. Scientifically speaking, it's much more anodic than stainless steel, and when paired in the presence of an electrolyte like moisture, it sacrifices electrons to the more cathodic metal, accelerating its own corrosion. All right, that's great. But how did the two metals come in contact with each other? This is where Airstream was negligent. Practically speaking, the edges of that stainless trim plate are relatively sharp. Not chef knife sharp, more like sandpaper, pretty harmless at first, but as the trailer vibrates, that edge cuts through the clear coat until it comes in contact with the bare aluminum underneath. Add a little moisture, like I did at the car wash, and physics will create a galvanic cell. Now, a galvanic cell is essentially a low voltage electrochemical battery. It forms when two dissimilar metals are electrically connected through an electrolyte, like water. The aluminum acts as the anode and corrodes to protect the stainless. In so doing, it accelerates the Filiform corrosion already underway, driving those spider webs even further beneath the clear coat. And here's the really bad part. what starts as a cosmetic issue can quickly become a structural issue if you don't stop it. Once corrosion spreads beyond the visual trim, it can compromise the panel. And replacing that panel, as we found out, is a $7,500 bill. And deep breath, Airstream is not coming to the rescue. In all likelihood, they will respond by telling you, 1, it's caused by an electrolytic reaction from dissimilar metals, which is true, that it's exacerbated by a sealing failure, which they will claim is a maintenance issue, that it's not covered unless it's a confirmed defect in manufacturing or materials, like poor sealing from the factory. And if it lasted more than a year, they will claim it could not have been a defect in manufacturing. It's not right, I know, but I'm just the messenger. And if you've watched this channel for a while, you know I give Airstream the benefit of the doubt. Things break. Trailers are subjected to a lot of forces your house never experiences. But in this case, I personally believe Airstream was negligent. Absolutely, positively negligent. They've been building aluminum trailers for 50+ years. They know about dissimilar metals and the reactions that result when they make contact, and yet they mounted a stainless trim plate with sharp edges to the thinly skinned aluminum siding with a gasket that never, not on the day they mounted it, protected the aluminum from those sharp edges. It wasn't a matter of if it will fail, it was simply when. That's inexcusable, that is negligence. But short of a class action lawsuit, which honestly, we should organize. If you're an attorney, reach out. I'll help raise awareness. Until then, we are on our own. If you don't believe me, call Airstream. Then leave a comment below. I'd like to know what they say. All right, let's shift focus from killing the snake to treating the bite. How do we fix this? Because it is on us at this point. You can't polish it out, you can't wax it away, and if you just reseal the trim plate without treating the metal underneath, it'll keep spreading. Let me illustrate with a parallel you already know. Fire. Fire needs 3 things: fuel, air, and heat. Take any one of the 3 away and the fire dies. It's that simple. Filiform corrosion is similar. It needs 3 critical conditions to survive. Humidity. Now, filiform corrosion tends to initiate above 70% relative humidity, especially if the coating is breached and there's salt or other contaminants present. Things that they put on the roads in the wintertime. 2, oxygen. 3, a breach in the coating, like was created when that trim plate cut through the clear coating. 4, add a catalyst like contact with dissimilar metal and the problem is exacerbated. I know that's 4, but this isn't a clean chemical equation we're working out in a lab. It's a battlefield. And since none of the treatments available to us are perfect, we have to attack on all 4 fronts. So let's do this right, because we don't want to do it again. Before we dive in, I want to set the record straight here. I love a well-earned battle scar. My Basecamp has a couple, and there's a story behind each one. But in one of the videos I watched on Basecamp corrosion, I saw this guy attack his Basecamp with, I don't know, scissors, pruning shears, a knife. It was awful, I promise you. His Basecamp is worse because of it. That's not a battle scar. That's bad advice and bad decision-making combined to create an eyesore. We're going to set the bar a lot higher, and this repair is not difficult. You don't need to be mechanically inclined or have an artistic bent. All you need is an hour and a half spread out over 3 days, and at least 4 things you probably don't have. So let's go through them. Corrosion X is a great product. It's well known in the aviation industry because of its effectiveness, but it leaves a greasy residue we don't want. Now please watch the whole video before attacking me. It's a great product, but we aren't going to apply a Band-Aid here. We're rebuilding the protective layer. We're doing a skin graft, if you will, from the ground up, and in this application, ACF 50 will give us a better result. So that's what we're going to use on this repair. You'll also need an 1/8 inch thick silicone mat, from which you will cut a new gasket for the trim plate. A tube of GE SCS 2000. Amazon listed this as SCS 2003, which is the black version, to seal the gasket. And a can of Everbrite coating, satin or gloss, your choice. This is the new skin I spoke of. Note, I put links to all of this stuff in the description below. But before we apply the new skin, we need to remove the corrosion. Again, stay with me on this. This is an easy project. First, wash the area with water and a little Dawn dish soap. Trust me, Dawn is the best. It removes the stuff that we need removed. Then, remove the trim plate screws and wiggle the trim plate free. Now scrape the corrosion away with a plastic razor blade, or, as I'm doing here, with a credit card. Don't use a hammer, a hatchet, or a machete. You don't need a grinder or anything sharp. We're just scraping the rough surface. If it doesn't come off, don't sweat it. We'll get it in the next step. Now tape off the area. I recommend painter's tape, like this blue tape. Don't use duct tape. This isn't that kind of repair. Sand the area with 400 grit wet dry sandpaper. Rinse the sandpaper often. Don't try to sand away all the little rivers the corrosion carved into your aluminum. We just want to remove the factory applied coating and smooth the metal. Now wipe the area with a clean rag, like one of these Costco microfiber towels. Best if it's brand new, and some denatured alcohol. Not rubbing alcohol, use pure denatured alcohol to remove any residue. Now mask off the surrounding area with tape and paper. Then spray it with ACF 50. Apply it sparingly. Too much can interfere with the new coating we're going to apply. Now leave it alone for 24 hours. It needs time to seep into microscopic voids in the corrosion and displace moisture, creating a protective barrier. In the meantime, let's cut out a new gasket. I recommend a sharp knife and a pair of sharp scissors. But a knife and a cutting board works pretty well if you don't have the scissors, along with a punch for the screw holes. We want the gasket to extend 1/8 inch beyond the edge of the trim plate. This way, it can't cut through the new skin we're about to apply to the aluminum, which is what Airstream should have done from the beginning. I'm not kidding you, it was that simple. That's all they had to do was put on a reasonable gasket. I'm still pissed about this. Shame on you, Airstream. But once we have that, we need to remove the old gasket. And this is the hardest part of the whole project, but a scraper and a lot of patience will win the day. All right, it's been 24 hours since I applied the ACF 50, and you can see that some of it ran down. You can see how it left that film. We're gonna get that off. I'm just gonna wipe it with the rag initially, just to get that off. I can see the tracks in there. I'm going to use some denatured alcohol here. I don't know if you can see, but there's some trail here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Let's see. Oops. You can see where that ACF 50 ran down and kind of etched the finish here. That's why you don't want to just spray it all around, because you get the trails like that. All right, it's pretty easy to see the line where I sanded. So I want to tape just a little bit outside that line because I want the Everbrite finish to extend onto the existing finish. So we get a little overlap. And you don't have to use tape this wide. It's just what I had. I'm gonna go over it with denatured alcohol one more time, just because there could be some oil from my fingers there. And a little bit. Most of that I think is oxidation. All right, now we've got the Everbrite. It says to mix well. I shook it for a good little while before this. Puncture and lift. I'm going to need a tool. Simply brush this on. Wait an hour, remove the tape, and give it another coat. This time, feather the Everbrite a little further onto the factory coating. Not much, maybe 1/4 inch. Now let that whole thing cure for 48 to 72 hours. The warmer and drier it is, the less time you need. Cool or humid, wait 72 hours. It will feel dry to the touch after an hour, but there's still a lot going on underneath the surface. So give it some time before applying the gasket and trim plate. All right, it's been 72 hours. The Everbrite is cured. Now we can secure our gasket with the GE SCS 2000. I'm going to seal it to the trim plate, then to the side of the trailer. With this gasket sandwiched between the GE SCS 2000, we've created a watertight seal that can be broken without destroying the side of your Basecamp should you need to service it down the road. Now let's connect the dots one last time. Filiform needs humidity. 70% is the trigger point. The Everbrite coating in GE SCS 2000 will deprive it of that. Oxygen, the Everbrite coating and GE SCS 2000 keep oxygen from reaching the aluminum. A breach in the coating. We sealed the breach with Everbrite and reinforced the weak point with a new gasket. Together, these two prevent galvanic reactions by keeping the dissimilar metals from contacting each other.
All right, I think this merits a little explanation. I am fine-tuning the placement of this gasket here by locating the first screw hole. The vent tubes going through the gasket help immensely. That gets you pretty close. But once I located that first screw hole, I made the whole process a lot easier. I can tell you that because I tried doing it without it and failed completely. So locating that first hole seems to be imperative. Then it's easy. You get the first screw in, and then the second one, and then it's off to the races. No issues. A couple of pro tips though. Make sure you wipe the excess silicone off while it's wet. Silicone is awful. Nobody likes it. It's the best at what it does, but it is terrible to clean up. Gets on your fingers, gets under your fingernails. It is awful. But take the time and clean this as good as you want it before leaving it. The other tip is take a minute before you put silicone on and test fit that outer trim panel or plate and your gasket. And then if your gasket extends a little bit further than you want, go ahead and trim it off. I didn't do that. I was a little bit paranoid. But having done it now, I can tell you that I wish I would have trimmed it just a little bit more. It doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look as good as it could if it didn't extend quite so far. One last note, it takes a couple of weeks for the Everbrite to fully cure. Once it's fully cured, I will come back with some 1000 grit sandpaper and a little polishing compound and sand that line that you see just to the left between the trim plate and the rivet there. That's the line where I taped off to paint the Everbrite. I'll sand that and it'll blend in perfectly. Little rubbing compound, done. Easy.
Shazam. That's it. Look at it. There are a few minor scars that aren't covered by the new gasket, but overall, this doesn't look bad. In fact, if you aren't looking for the scars, you aren't going to notice them. One last tidbit of wisdom. Inspect each of these trim pieces regularly. Every time you wash your Airstream, check to see that you don't have metal-to-metal contact. You can see the rubber gasket between the metals. This is how the one we fixed should have looked. Why Airstream missed the mark on this is a mystery. I expected more. Shame on you, Airstream. I can't say that enough. I'm really upset. But there you have it. I'd like to thank my buddy Rich, an engineer's engineer and aircraft mechanic, for his insights on corrosion and dissimilar metals. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Share it with somebody. Subscribe. Do all three. There's a lot more to come. And some fun stuff. As always, wherever you go, whatever you do, make it an adventure.